And my first guest today is producer at Firefly Studio, Sophie James. Hello, Sophie. Welcome to the studio. Sophie, been busy, right, this year?
Very busy.
Very busy, very busy. Lots of topics because, I mean, the game has been very successful. You've been working specifically on
Stronghold Crusader Definitive Edition.
All right, and it's an interesting. I mean, we covered a Stronghold when it released on the show, and we sort of went back to sort of interesting facts about all this trend about creating definitive editions, remasters, HD or whatever, and this is a very specific one. So my first question would be, how long does it take to sort of create one of these editions, and where do you start from, and how does it work?
Yeah, so for us, the original Stronghold Definitive Edition took a little bit longer because we were kind of building up the technology, porting to Unity, which is a challenge in and of itself, and kind of getting that framework ready to go. Crusader Definitive Edition was a bit quicker because we already had that kind of foundation there from the Stronghold Definitive Edition that we were then able to build off of, because as some players have noticed, Crusader Definitive Edition isn't built from Crusader as a base, it's built from Stronghold Definitive Edition as a base, which was a very clever idea our programmer had that he then managed to pull off, which was an incredible time save. So that's kind of what enabled us to get it out in about, I think the full development cycle was about 1.5 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Yeah, okay. And do you start from, well, there's source code, of course, this is like but then I guess these games are old, because when was the game from? When was it released?
2001, I think, was the original Crusader.
So you're working on with 25 years old tech, which
older
is
than me.
But it's incredibly I guess challenging, because tech expands and progresses. Do you start from it? Do you start from scratch? What's the
yeah.
What do you get assets from?
So assets was tricky because a lot of them were lost or corrupted or missing textures and had to be rebuilt from scratch. So the art was quite a significant load. And then, in terms of the code, the way it works is the original Crusader code is kind of split into 2 parts. And this is the best non-technical producery explanation I can give. It's split into 2 parts, the graphics code and the behavior code. And the graphics code is something that I believe was fully rewritten for Stronghold Definitive Edition, because it had to be to work properly in Unity. Because Unity handles the graphics in a very different way than our original engine did. And then the behavior code, we did build upon to a degree, but we wanted to leave a lot of that preserved, A, for our own timelines, because digging into that is complicated and messy, and B, to kind of preserve the feeling of the original game as best as possible, because it has a lot of jank, but that jank brings a lot of character.
Yeah.
And the last thing we'd want to do is completely rewrite it and kind of sanitize it and just remove all that nostalgia and the original has.
Yeah, because you're almost wanting to sell the game to the original players of the game.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
And when you do this exercise, you've got an audience who still plays the game nowadays?
Yeah, so we were in a very lucky position that the original Crusader audience was alive and massive and still playing. They had 20 years of experience with the game. They were hosting multiplayer tournaments frequently, skirmish tournaments. They had the map making community is alive and well. So we were very, very lucky to have that audience. And we knew that with Crusader Definitive Edition, the priority was never going to be bringing in new players. It was always going to be what is going to make these people who are in love with this game happy. So a funny anecdote to do with that is in testing, when we were testing mission balance for the new content that we brought to Crusader Definitive Edition, if our QA team was struggling, like really, really struggling to beat a mission, banging their head against the wall saying, I've been at it for a week, I can't beat it, I want to give up. That's how we knew that we'd done our jobs. Because those players with 20 years of experience, they know exactly how everything works, and they are going to find a mission a good level of challenge if it is driving us insane playing it ourselves.
Yeah, I think I mean, it's a personal opinion, but I think what worked very well on this is that there's instances of publishers and developers trying to bring back experiences that are almost dead, like games that are not alive anymore. It's like in people's memory, they think they know what they used to play, but this one is a game that people still played when it released.
Yeah, definitely. And there were some challenges in the sense that I'm going to give a shout out here to the UCP team, the unofficial Crusader patch. That is something that people have been playing with for a long time. So then we've had some situations where people would say, hey, this bit feels different. Is that how that worked in the original? And we've gone to check, and yes, it is how it works in the original. But people have gotten so used to playing with this patch that it feels different to them. So that was a really interesting aspect. But we took a lot of inspiration from the UCP team.
How did you involve the community in the process? Was it from the beginning? Did you involve them whilst development was going on?
Yeah, so we quite frequently run player surveys, and we gather a lot of data from that kind of, when we're looking in early pre-production to put together what's the shape of this game going to be, what should we include, what new things should we add, that is massively informed by those surveys. So yes, we do use them. And then we also have a lovely community on the Discord and the YouTube who are very active and like to give their input, and we'll very often monitor those player discussions. Usually we don't get involved, but we'll just kind of watch and see like, that's what they're saying. And I think hopefully the updates we've put out recently for Crusader D have kind of shown that, because a lot of the times the audience will be asking for something, and then we look and we say, yes, that is a good idea, and then we will have it out within a patch or two.
Is there do you think, an overlap in audience between Stronghold and Stronghold Crusader, and how do you, is that a thing, or?
Yeah, there's definitely the players that will play any Stronghold game, the very dedicated fans of the whole series. And then there's definitely also dedicated Crusader players who really enjoy the kind of large-scale battles, the troop control, that kind of extra hardcore element that comes with Crusader. And then maybe the other games are just a little bit too slow-paced for them, not as intense, so they stick with Crusader primarily.
Going back a bit to your role, right? I guess unfortunately, producers don't get this sort of a lot of visibility, as in the makers of the game, or the designers and the artists and so on. But what does a producer do in a game like this? I mean, I guess it differs, but what's your primary role? Yeah,
so my job is basically to be the I don't want to say the glue for the team. That's a bit strong, but my job is to remove problems basically before they hit the team, and before the team has to waste brain power even thinking about them, because we just want them locked in on what they need to do and getting that done. So something like, let's say, we've got deadline X, Y, and Z coming up, and we need to deliver these things for these deadlines. So I'll then kind of plan out, okay, we need to be getting these bits done by this time to have this ready for these. And then we kind of work with the team to figure out, is there anything that's gonna kind of get in the way of that? Is there some unforeseen consequence of doing thing X in front of thing Y? Because sometimes that has knock-on effects that we can't quite account for until we talk to, say, a programmer or a designer. But yeah, a lot of it is just kind of being the logistics of the team, and then occasionally pushing for an idea to get in.
Yeah. I mean, you get that as well, but yes. There's also a role into sort of fitting, and this is someone coming from someone who's done this multiple times over the years, is that when you develop a game, people don't realize you've got also the marketing needs within the development process, and that is sort of mostly visualizable through the idea of, okay, we have to make a demo, and you've done that, right? You've done demos, right? And you've done a very hard thing, I think, releasing a demo, I think a month before release or something.
Yeah, it was about a month before. It's one of those things where the dates come through from Steam of things like Next Fests and when you're going to get deals and stuff, and then we're very lucky that with our in-house marketing team, we can be quite flexible, and we work together in terms of setting a date that's good for the team and healthy for the team, but also hits all those kind of Steam targets in being healthy for the game as well. But yeah, it was definitely a challenge. We actually had the original plan for that demo too, because it was the second demo we put out, was for it to be a multiplayer demo.
Okay.
Where you'd be able to play multiplayer with 4 people. And then we kind of realized as we were approaching it that that wasn't going to be healthy for the base game, and we'd rather put out something that would be easier for us to put together as a demo to then be able to invest more time into getting that base game ready, considering the release window was so close. So we ended up putting out the skirmish demo, which was actually a huge hit and performed really well. And players seemed to really love, because of course they did it, skirmish. That's every Crusader fan's bread and butter. But yeah, it's a lot of just kind of figuring out what's sensible to put in a demo. The earlier demo was actually even more of a challenge, because in a game like Crusader, for that demo to go out and be playable, you have to have a big selection of the units ready, which is a big chunk of art, because they need the models, the textures, and then all those animations, a load of the buildings ready so that you can place your buildings,
so it's
and
almost
have a
like
good
you
variety.
need to hold the full game.
Pretty much, yeah, because you need to have that full variety ready. Otherwise, it's going to feel like a really closed-off, stale experience, and that's not what we wanted to put out there as our first demo. And then also, the biggest challenge for that first demo was getting the UI ready, because the whole HUD needed to be done, and that was a big rush. So shout out to our UI artist Tom for getting that through.
That's very interesting. The how do you measure a success of a demo? Is that something you track?
Yeah, so it's to do with the playtime that players put into it. So there's a fancy term for it, but just the number of minutes a single player will spend in that demo, that's then averaged out, and bigger number is better. That makes Steam push the game and the demos more to more people. And then also the amount of wish lists that we generate off of that demo is really, really important, because with the way Steam works at the moment, wish list is king. Wish list number is the most important factor, I believe, in pushing a game.
But in a way, you almost don't want players to play too much, because they feel like they had the whole experience. Is that something that's
something we were worried about, which is why we thought very carefully about what content we were putting into the demos. And we tried to kind of make it so that we weren't giving too much away, but then also keeping it fun and with variety. So for the custom skirmish demo, so demo 2, we had to be very careful about not making all the buildings available, not making all the troops available, not making all the AI lords available, because that's just the game at that point. That is just the whole game, which we were going to release in a month. So if everyone was pouring like 40 hours into that demo, they're not going to want to play the game when it launches. They'll just say, oh, we're done. So yeah, it's a bit of a balancing act, but I like to think we found a pretty good balance with that demo too.
In terms of the the structure of a game like this, do you release and then decide that that's done? I mean, you fix the stuff and so on, or do you sort of start working on extra content, so you start a new phase of development?
Yeah, so the post-launch content was something we actually decided on quite early.
Okay.
So I think we knew that from, I'd say 4 months in. We had that pretty much locked down, what that was going to be. So it is, I think, definitely in these days, games as a service annoys me, because it's like you make a game, you release it, and then it's expected to update forever and ever and ever and ever. And if you stop updating, everyone's like, oh, the game's dead. I don't think that's how it should be, personally, but there is this nice environment of you can put out some post-launch content, some DLCs, and lots of updates that then really allows you to kind of respond to what the players want. Because there's a lot of stuff we realized we made decisions on, but that actually players did want that. A good example is there's some CPU lords in the game that in the original game they didn't trade weapons, and that was a choice to introduce some variety with how the CPU lords behaved. And we said, no, we're going to stick with that. And then we released, and we realized actually, no, players want that. They don't see why we wouldn't put that in, and that's something that they think will positively, enhance their experience. So in the last most recent patch, we put that back in, because we just think, I say put that back, we introduced it, because we think that's just something, if it's clear that it's something that's going to enhance the experience, why not?
What's the process of, I guess, deciding on, this is a big game, right? Mm-hmm. And deciding how to expand it is probably a very tough design decision, right? So what's the process there? Is design led? Is it team?
So honestly, that comes back to the surveys I was talking about earlier. I think 70% or some crazy number like that wanted co-op. So it was very, very clear to us we would be adding co-op mode, which we did, and that's been really well received. And then there was some calls for just some more challenging content. We saw in a lot of forums people were saying, oh, I've been doing this for 20 years, it's starting to get a bit stale, it's a bit easy. So we thought, okay, we'll add the Sands of Time Trails, which when we were designing those, it was very important to us that they weren't, that they were a very specific type of timer-based content, because it's basically the kind of content where you play a mission and then you get rewarded a score for how quickly you beat it, but we didn't want it to be a time limit, like a countdown, because those annoy everyone, I think. I think that's a pretty universally accepted hate. So it's just stuff like that where you could, and we introduced leaderboards to that mode as well, so that it could just be like a we didn't want to do competitive mode, but like close to competitive kind of thing.
Is there a big multiplayer community, and how big is that within the environment? Is it?
So there is a multiplayer community around Crusader. I know that they were hosting some tournaments in Germany recently, which was really cool. But that's all fan led, not official. But I think mostly it's to do with skirmish mode. The skirmish mode is the biggest community, and obviously that is single player, but there will be a lot of have the same setup and the same rule set, and then see who can do it the fastest or get the most points. So that's another thing that we've played into with the post-launch updates, because we've added a randomization setting for skirmish, where you can enter your parameters and then just have a random battle thrown at you. You don't know how many lords there's going to be. You don't know if you're going to have friends or be all alone.
Do you think that you said at the beginning you're sort of trying to sell this game to existing players of Stronghold, like veteran players or whatever you want to call them. Do you think you've captured new players?
I think there are a few. We've had some when we were at PAX East earlier in the year, and there were some people coming up who were like, "Oh, I've not seen this before. What is this? What is this about?" We did have, what was really funny is we did have one guy come up and say, "Oh, this is just a class. You've just ripped off this other game." It's like, we were first. We did it first. But yeah, I think there are definitely it's smaller, but there is a new audience there.
Yeah, I think I was almost thinking that Stronghold was one of the first survival RTSs, right? Invented the genre, and then all of a sudden this is becoming very, very popular. So there's a huge market for it for this. Anything you're excited about in the future on Crusaders?
Yeah, on Crusader, I'm incredibly excited for the upcoming winter update. So that's our update 2, because we're bringing the players kind of the customization that they've been asking for. So custom lords and that sort of stuff, which is something they've been doing themselves for a while, but now we're getting to bring it to them in the game, which I'm very, very excited about, because we weren't quite sure if we'd be able to pull that off, but it's coming together.
That's great. And it's great to see that it's still growing massively, so congratulations on that. Listen, Sophie, we have at the end of every interview, we have this thing where basically we ask quick fire questions to our guests, so don't be too worried about it. It's gonna be fine. But you ready?
Go for it.
All right, 3, 2, 1. What is the thing you love the most about being in the gaming industry?
Getting to make cool choices and then seeing them be in the game.
All right, okay. Do you have a favorite game to play on the go?
On the go? Not a favorite, but I've just started playing Amori, which I know I'm very late on.
All right.
Oh, actually, The King is Watching. That's my favorite on the game. On the go game right now. Very good on Steam Deck.
That's great. Do you have the best comment you got from the player, from a player of the Crusader?
Yes, there was a person who, he had his fair criticisms about the state of the game on release, and then with the most recent patch, he said, "There's nothing left to complain about. They've gone and done it." And I think that actually made my year. That's
great. What is the worst thing about being in the gaming industry?
Am I allowed to say layoffs, or is that too political right now?
That's perfectly fine. And if your cat was an enemy lord, who would it be?
The wolf.
The wolf.
Yeah, my cat's a vicious little monster, and I love him very much.
Thank you for being with us, Sophie.
Thank you for having me.